We are profoundly shaped. This is according to all the readings and the research. We are profoundly shaped by our social environment, and we suffer greatly when our social bonds are absent, are severed. Our well-being depends on our connection with others. Feeling connected to each other is a basic human need. So here's the question. What is human connection? It's a feeling of being part of something more than yourself. Not at the expense of denying yourself, but fulfilling oneself. Through friendships, a marriage, a family, a purposeful community, a social justice affiliation, a school, a set of beliefs and ideas. When you walk hand in hand with someone you love, when you lie in bed sick and stroke your dog, who is hoisted herself next to you, knowing that you're not feeling well, when you see a photograph of a high school class, as I did recently, all those moments connect you to something more than yourself. In your very own mission statement, you say, inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature, connect openly and deeply, and act for justice. So can you see how integral this theme is in the meaning of our lives? Simply put, we need one another, as we read in the responsive reading earlier. We need connections that matter, connections that are heartfelt. We need to connect or reconnect to our friends, our families, our communities. And the way that this can be done most naturally, of course, is in person and through what I call the human moment. A human moment occurs any time two or more people are together, being present with one another. These connections are the key to what counts in life. But according to recent psychological and sociological studies, these interpersonal bridges are breaking down. Just as our highway system needs repair, the interpersonal infrastructure of America seems to be weakening as well. We're losing human contact with one another, even though we don't mean to. We're busy. We're otherwise engaged. We're somewhere else. Technology, of course, has indeed worked miracles of connection. Emails, faxes, FedEx, answering machines, cell phones, televisions, teleconferences, the internet. Is there anything else? These have all put us in touch with one another in ways that we've never been able to before. Indeed, we are instantly reachable anywhere, all the time, by people we know and by thousands of people we don't know. I see, you know what I mean. The irony is that as electronic communication has grown, according to all the research and whatnot, human connections have declined. We're close electronically, but we're far from one another personally. I read a research paper recently that referred to this phenomenon as phubbing. Now let me tell you what that is. Phubbing is the practice of snubbing others in favor of our mobile phones. We've all been there, either as victim or perpetrator. I know. I'm just as guilty as anyone else. We may no longer even notice when we've been phubbed or are phubbing, because it's become such a normal part of our lives. However, research studies are revealing the profound impact that phubbing can have on our relationships and our well-being. What is missing in the lives of most people is not electronic communication. Indeed, that abounds. And it's okay. I mean, we've benefited in many ways from it. But human connection, the feeling that you are part of something that matters, even if it's in nature itself. You can feel connected sitting quietly by a lake in the Poconos, and you can feel totally disconnected sitting with hundreds of people on a crowded subway, or chatting with millions of people over the internet. I've worked with many couples whose relationship was on the rocks precisely because of an inability to regulate technology. How much TV to watch, how many hours to spend on the computer, how long to talk on the telephone, once humorous questions, but now these are friendship and marriage-breaking dilemmas. One of my counseling clients calls her husband's computer his plastic mistress. Here's the point. Even in the internet age, the most satisfying contact still requires the physical and emotional presence of others. Looking back on my ministry of preaching, I would say that a major theme throughout my sermons has been life, death, and connection. Another word for connection is love, of course. The love connection is what we yearn for in life, between birth and death. And we deal with life by reaching out to one another or another human being. Do you remember the movie Castaway? Tom Hanks. He's the main character. He's a grim type of guy who works for UPS. He ends up alone on an island, right? After a plane crash in some far-off, unpopulated region of the ocean. Do you remember what he does? He survived for a while, talking to a picture of his girlfriend that he's placed on the side of a rock. And then he creates a buddy with a basketball that's washed ashore. On the shore. What? A golf ball. A volleyball. Oh, I'm sorry. Some things never change. Thank you so much. A volleyball that's washed up on the shore of the island. And he names this volleyball Wilson. And he talks to Wilson. And then Wilson is his buddy. Wilson keeps him company. But at some point, sadly, tragically, Wilson gets washed away in the ocean. And then, of course, Tom Hanks jumps into the water after Wilson. And we think to ourselves, it's so stupid. What's he doing? And then we think, no, he's human. We know the importance of connection instinctively. In infants, children, we hold them, we comfort them, we carry them, we hold their hands. We look at them with adoration and love. The first memory I have as a child is my mother looking at me with a sparkling twinkle in her eyes and a loving smile on her face. Now, she didn't look at me all the time, like, especially when she was spanking me. But I think that look registered with me in my brain circuits more than any other single one. In a recent scientific report, it is asserted that all children are hardwired to connect. And the report notes an increase in mental and behavioral health problems among United States children and that the causes for this deterioration is the lack of meaningful connections. The report states that there are two kinds of connectedness essential to mental health: close connections to other people and deep connections to moral and spiritual meaning. The renowned psychologist John Bowlby was one of the first to study and recognize the importance of connections in childhood. And based upon his studies of infants, he discovered how frequent disruptions of parental connections, or in some cases total absence of parental connections, often lead to depression, anger, personality disorder, and anxiety in children as they mature. In fact, I believe, well, there's a recent report that has indicated that our older adolescents are experiencing anxiety more than ever. It's increased almost twofold in the last 10 years. So I believe that this lack of this connection is often the cause of human brutality. Without this deep connection, humans can feel alienated, alone, and non-existent, which often leaves humans angry, despairing, fearful, and out of this emotional state, strike back at the world that feels so rejected. And that, I believe, we've been witnessing a great deal in recent years. Gun shootings, for example. In like manner, there's an enormous amount of literature about the importance of connection in marital relationships. Based on my own experience with couples, it has become quite clear that the root of most marital discord is the lack of emotional connection. A connection that is sought by all couples when they are seeking marriage. But it's hard to sustain. Where there was once adoration, sometimes the fondness becomes less and less expressed. Where there was once a loving presence with each other, a cancerous emotional distance takes over. There are a lot of reasons for this. Some would say it's the breakdown of communication, and I would agree with that. But basically, couples just don't know how to express their emotional needs, or we get sidetracked by all the other stuff that's going on around us. And we become distant, and distant leads to resentment, and resentment leads to escalating bitterness and harsh judgments about one another, and then emotional disconnect. A poignant example of just how enduring and powerful a connection between two people can be was given to me by another patient recently whose parents are in a nursing home. He said, almost a year ago, my dad had a stroke during a surgical procedure. After 2 weeks in intensive care, he was transferred to a nursing home where my mother was already a resident, suffering from Alzheimer's. And Dad's language now was made up of mostly one-word syllables. Monosyllabic, right? Is that the word?
Yep.
But even with Mom in her own world, and Dad coping with his stroke, each one found ways to continue to look after one another and get help when it was needed. For example, Mom alerted the nurse when Dad had a grand mal seizure, even though she doesn't recognize us. And the way Mom and Dad look at each other, touch each other, and just stay beside each other is a testimony to their deep connection. The ability to connect with others is built into us, like sight, or touch, or smell. The chance to connect is open to all of us, as long as we live. But many people, and I have to say, mostly men, I don't know if that's fair or not, anyway, go through life rarely opening up, always playing cards close to our vest. When it comes right down to it, we say defensively, it's a dog-eat-dog world. Trust no one, and you'll never get disappointed. Don't be vulnerable. But why not take a chance? Sure, we are alone in some basic ways, and sure, people can let you down. But connections always beckoning, like lights flickering along the shoreline. They're there if only we respond. Of course, now what I'm really talking about today is love. Not romantic love, but love in its deepest and its most healing way. Let's call it the human moment. It may be that you have to turn off the TV now and then, or set aside chunks of time for just hanging out. I suggest to some of the couples that they create a ritual of connection. That's what we call it. Take on responsibility that you don't want. This is not easy, but it isn't impossible. You know, the Orthodox Jews, I don't know how much they do this anymore, but the Orthodox Jews they have a wonderful observance from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. They do no work. They can't drive, they can't talk on the telephone, they can't go shopping. And so on that day, they interact with one another. They talk to their neighbors, they talk to their families, they go for walks. Their religion forces them to take time to connect with one another and with their community. One of the challenges of today's world is this: how do we hold on to both the cell phone and the day of rest, or the moment of rest? We have to figure out how to hold on to the technology and the human moment. We can't turn back the clock. We can't dismantle and throw away our technology. It's not going to happen. And I don't want to, really. It is good. But on the other hand, we shouldn't let go of the personal connections that we need with one another, that we need to hold on to the human moment. This is never easy. Being human, sometimes we can easily betray and hurt one another. This is why we need an ongoing commitment to one another to live by the virtues of compassion and justice and forgiveness. What is the human moment? It's a man and a woman loving each other. It's a man loving another man. It's a woman loving another woman. It's a street person loving a street person. It's short loving tall and old loving young. It's a husband vacuuming the carpet. Not because he really loves to vacuum, but because he knows it will be meaningful for his wife and how much she appreciates it. Right? No. It's being in love with the world itself and with life. In love with the full moon, the roses blooming in your neighbor's yard, Beethoven's ninth. It's being in love with the choir singing on a Sunday morning, or a beautiful duet being sung on a Sunday morning. It's calling an old friend that you haven't talked to for a long time. And you say, hey, how you doing? I miss you. We haven't talked. What's going on? Something reminded me of you today. The human moment happens beside the hospital bed with your dying friend. The human moment is on a teacher's class the last day of school. The human moment is the strong hand of one who stood with you in times of trouble. It's standing next to another and singing the spirit of life. It's sharing your personal story at a community circle meeting with people who are actually listening to you. The human moment is cooking meals for the hungry. It's working with a committee to create safer neighborhoods. The human moment is joining with others to help build schools for the poor, or marching with other humans against racial discrimination in your community. Well, I could go on and on. The human moment is right here in this room, week after week, year after year, inviting you, saying, you are worthy of love. You are loved. I care. I'm standing for you. Over and over again. Those are the human moments. The moments of connection that we never stop needing. So, beloved, breathe life into them every day. As we read in the responsive reading, all our lives are in need. We are in need, and others are in need of us. Got it? Let's sing together now. What is it? Number 18. Hymn number 18.
theologically diverse religious community with membership open to all in accordance with our principles, mission, and vision. We are an independent member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, an association of a little over 1,000 congregations in this country and elsewhere in the world. Our congregation is entirely self-governed and financed, supported by the voluntary generosity of our members and friends. To this end, let there be an offering to sustain the work of this beloved community. Today's offering will also be shared by Midnight Run, a voluntary organization serving the homeless. See your order of service for more information. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. in the dedication of the offering, which is found in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith.
It's been great being here. And now as we depart, may we leave knowing once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. And now may the service begin.
Amen.
But let us sing 123. Oh yes, the choir is coming forward. Spirit of life. So are you going to sing it? Oh, yes,
I invite you to sit through the postlude, but please join me in saying the chalice extinguishing words which are printed in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry